All right, it is finally that time, the hotly anticipated video overview and review of the salty Anechoic RAM here. So I just wanted to compare it to all of the other RAMs that exist for the G6R. We'll do some measurements and then we'll go shoot it. Just because most of the benefit of this RAM, I don't want to say isn't numerical, but it's not designed for, an increase in FPS or a decrease in operating pressure. That's not the principal purpose of this RAM. This RAM was designed to eliminate both sets of pinging from your entire RAM stroke here. So just kind of a little overview of this RAM. It's a three-piece design, so it threads apart, and you have this front section, which the big feature on this is that there's now a bumper on the front of the RAM. So as it hits the front of this kind of integrated valve body, that's present on every other RAM. This RAM has a bumper for the front stroke of the RAM cycle, and then it has this threaded insert here, which has a little brass piece, that's your contact patch, with your RAM bumper on the back of your RAM cap, and then it has a bumper on the inside here. So this little brass piece is making contact with an O-ring on the inside, and that is what is providing the backstroke anti-pinging here. So really kind of a smart design. It's the only three-piece RAM I've ever seen outside of like Indian Creek or some kind of older RAMs that are an integrated RAM housing with it as well. From a performance perspective, we'll kind of go through that, but really what this is for is to be a little upgrade from your TechT, sorry about that, a little upgrade versus your TechT RAM, just because this is going to be cushioning the impact on the front and the backstroke. So they will ship Loctited from Method. I requested that this one not be, just because I wanted to take it apart on camera here. So it comes pre-installed with all of the prerequisite O-rings that you need here. These are all standard, so your O-ring, your rebuild kits, all of that will stay the same. And I'm going to reiterate, again, versus all these other RAMs, the primary benefit, even with the three-piece, I can't speak to like future things, but I think with it being a three-piece design, he could have different lengths of this bumper. If one was a little bit longer, it could move your bolt position a little bit more forward in your breech, for rollback. So it's future-proof. Like, it has some modularity kind of built into it, even though it's not being billed as that. You could have that. It also has some little wrench flats here, so you don't have to mar up your RAM when you take it apart. Not that you'd ever need to take it apart. And then it has this really beautiful oxide coating. So this is still steel. It's not aluminum. It's not anodized. This is like a nitride coated RAM here. So as you can see, I've got a couple. The thing I wanted to do first and foremost was kind of see how it stacks up compared to the stock RAM here, and some others, just in terms of length, weight, all these other measurables here. So let's kind of start here. Here is our stock G6R RAM. So if I like to kind of keep everything in that context. This is, and I'm not going to weigh like a bunch of these and average it out. I'm sure there's some variability between all of these RAMs, just because they're machined by a paintball company, right? You might be one that's 33.9 or 33.7. So I'm going to call it 33.8 for the stock. The other stock Bob Long is that on the Signature Series and the Dragon, or at least some of the runs, they had a hollow RAM from Bob Long. Short-lived and short-sighted because it sucks. So the issue you run into, when you have a RAM that's way too light, you need to have a lighter valve spring, which they did not include, and it does the opposite of what you want a paintball gun to do. So you're going to have to really increase your pressures to offset that lower moving mass, which is why I am also not a fan of this kind of prototype one that I was able to track down. This is solid titanium, and this one is at 18.9 grams. So not much to say about this one, to be honest. The double O-ring, I think, is a throwback to old Intimidator rams, but you can get air between these two O-rings, and it's going to increase your drag. Plus, it's like half the weight, and if you just drop this in without changing anything, you're going to be shooting 220. I think the pressure differential required to run a really light ram is not worth the benefit of the faster cycling speed, like we're not doing uncapped semi, right? Now, the biggest comparison I think is going to be to the TechT zero ping. So theirs, I don't want to say is inelegant, but it's not really user serviceable. This is glued in here. If you ever have any issues with that, nitpick, right? I think for the past 10 years, this has really done a nice job. It's been kind of a mainstay in the G6R universe here. Big fan of the TechT RAM for sure. And this is at 33.1 grams, which makes sense. This is reductive. They took some material out and then put an O-ring in there. And then lastly, on the Method, we are at 32.0. So, about a gram lighter than some of these other offerings, which, it is lighter, which I don't like. I would have loved if it was a gram heavier. Could have had a little bit of a softer shot, reduce some pressures at a gram lighter. We'll see how that impacts our shot here. But I anticipate that's why, in conjunction with, the shorter mechanical dwell of having this bumper in here, it's not going to protrude into the valve body as far because it's being stopped on this bumper. Why I think there's some reports of you need to increase your dwell a little bit. So we'll see if this is a little bit longer, because my next test will be, let's take some measurements here. So again, this is something like on the Eigen RAM for the G6R, which I no longer have, but that weighed maybe 10 grams. The Eigen RAM was a little bit longer, and it accomplished the same thing the low pressure Poppet did, which was by having a longer RAM, you lengthened your mechanical dwell. You're going to have more air per shot, and you can lower your pressures here. So that's another thing I wanted to look at versus the TechT, which I think is the main competitor here. So on the TechT, I'm going to do it not from the O-ring. We're at 76.3 millimeter. Let's see, 76.3 millimeter. On the stock, .1. So the TechT is a little bit longer. Interesting. 76.1. So I imagine this is all, in the scheme of things, I don't want to say a rounding error, but I don't know how much benefit we're going to see. 76.3. So as you'll see, it's the exact same length as the stock, which is nice. 76.3 millimeter. I imagine the hollow RAM will be 76.1. Interesting. I don't know what, is the acceptable kind of QC differences here for something like this, but let's see this guy, 76.32. So I'm gonna call it 76.3. So as you can see, these are all pretty similar in terms of, the variables that we need here. With the biggest differences on the Method RAM being, and versus stock, right? It is the same length, and it is 1 gram lighter. And then on the TechT, it is a 1 gram lighter. So, these are the three that are really in contention here. So if you have a stock RAM, you should be buying one of these two. it really, and I can't overstate how significant of a change to the shot profile on a G6R having a 0 pinging RAM is, right? So I think the next thing to do is let's kind of shoot it. Let's see how our parameters have to change in terms of pressure, and then let's see what the shot quality sounds like. So now that these are measured, let's take a look. All right, so here's kind of the first test here. I have the performance Poppet. My dual's at 5, and this is with the TechT 0 ping RAM. So dual of 5, TechT RAM. HPR is at 170, LPR is at 62. So as we can see, 283, 283, 283, 286, 287, very consistent. This is where I'd go and play. And here it is shooting a string. So just listen to the all right, so here is the new Method RAM ported over. So first I'm going to do a little test and just show you, if you directly port it over, same pressure, same everything, what that looks like in terms of velocity and consistency. And then if it's any lower, I'll rebalance, and then we'll do a shooting video. So let's take a look. 260, 264, 273, 267, 258, 266, 277. So it looks like we've lost about 10 FPS or so. So let's do this. Let's increase our dwell a half step, like they recommend. And see if that, let's go to 5.5. If that puts us back in the 280s. Probably gonna bump that LPR a smidge. So we're averaging like low 280s. I want it to be kind of apples to apples here. Let's bump the LPR a smidge. $291, $287, $283, $288, $291. So that's about where I want to be. So I'm now back at 164 HPR, 74 LPR. So a dwell increase of 0.5 and an LPR increase of, I don't know, 6 or 7. I think, LPR increase to offset the little bit of lower weight, the little bit of shorter mechanical dwell, and then a dwell bump as well. So let's see how it sounds. All right, so with that is the Method Engineering Anechoic RAM. And I think, as with all things that Method does, it's less so trying to be everything and more give people options and allow tuners to tune things, right? I'm a big fan of this RAM. I'm going to keep it in most of my G6Rs. So the one that I did this demonstration with, that is the one that I've had on the bleeding edge of dwell. So if you're a dwell tuner, this is not the RAM for you. I'll be directly honest with you. If you're a dwell tuner, I think the little bit of weight and the little bit less mechanical dwell that you get from having this O-ring, bumper, you're gonna have to raise your dwell to compensate. I'd say, but on 9 out of 10 of my G6Rs, I do not dwell tune. I tune for LPR. And what I mean by that is, if you run a G6R to dwell of 8, which I think is a fantastic dwell setting that I have most of mine at, I picked that last G6R because it's an edge case, right? But if you are someone who is running a stock G6R at stock pressures, if your dwell is at, 6, like from factory, you're gonna drop this in no issues. If you have a salty Poppet, if you have a method Poppet, and then you run your stock dwell, you're gonna drop it in and it's just gonna sound better. But if you are dwell tuning, if you're going for lowest dwell possible, this is not the RAM for lowest dwell possible. But it is the RAM for best shot profile possible. It's hard to truly articulate. I'm not sure if you can tell from the videos, but you know how people talk about LV2s kind of having less of a mechanical shot, kind of shooting like a spool? That's what this does. It's actually incredible. it's bonkers. Like the shot feel in the hand, it's 100% changed how it feels in your hand. It's less sharp, it's less mechanical, it's a thud instead of a ding. It's the instead of ding 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 ding. You know what I mean? The backstop on the TechT bolt, we've already experienced that. But just this small change right here has really changed the shot characteristic a ton. Even at those slightly higher pressures, slightly higher dwell settings, higher dwell is always going to shoot a little bit softer, but I think it's such a benefit. I'm not going to put the TechT back in and lower my dwell back down. I'm going to keep this in just for the shot profile. You don't realize how much of the G6R shot characteristic is coming from this hitting the inside of the body, and that having this little bumper here helps with. It's a market difference. It's a big difference. So I think you've got a couple use cases. If you already have a TechT, if you have a 0 ping RAM already, but you're not dwell tuning, if you have a 0 ping RAM already, this is a good upgrade because it shoots better. It's better made, it's rebuildable, it's serviceable, it looks great, and it changes the shot characteristic in a positive way, even over the 0 ping. The only use case where I would not recommend this is if you are dwell tuning. If you are running a high pressure Poppet and you're just trying to go for lowest dwell setting possible, this is not the RAM for you. I don't know how big of a crowd that is, to be honest, but if you're over dwelling for lowest LPR pressure, fantastic option. If you're running stock dwell, fantastic option. I got this running really consistently at 5.5. Back at 6, no issue. It's really nice little RAM. I think it's well worth the money. I think it's worth the premium. If you're already going to pay $40 for the TechT, what's another couple bucks to finish the job? You know what I mean? You've already decided that you want to change the shot characteristic, and that is worth money to you. So, in for a penny, in for a pound. Just do the method RAM and get it all the way there. It's really an incredible difference in terms of shot characteristic. It's not any quieter, it's not any smoother per se, but in your hands when you're shooting it, that ping, that mechanical noise is completely gone. And I think this, in conjunction with the method bolt and the method Poppets, it completely changes the characteristics of the platform as a whole. It's unrecognizable. Stock RAM, high pressure stock Poppet, and a stock bolt versus a fully methoded out version, it's two different guns. Hey Nick, how does the JT Impulse shoot versus a G6R? Right, it's completely different. And I think this is one more notch in the method belt of making your G6R shoot as well as possible. So, big fan. I bought 5 of these. I figured they were going to be good, and I was not disappointed. So, if you're in the market for a RAM, or even if you're not, worth your consideration. I like it a lot.